My time here was not done. And I'm here to tell you that about a year after I came back to singing, I was doing a church service and somebody came into the church and said, I really like the songs you picked today. And they were positive and motivating, which is who I am, on the planet. And I want to pick those songs and touch people's hearts. And this woman's name was Joy. And she said to me, Patty, I love these songs. And I said, well, everybody has music that follows them in good times and bad. I just have these great platforms to sing them on. And she looked at me and said, no, Patty, you really live your gift. And I was like, zing, like that was a message. And I've looked for her. I believe she was an angel who gave me a reason to go out and remind people that we're all born with gifts and that it's up to us to remember what they are and to live them.
Welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe, where we pour positive back into your day, sharing stories from real people who have made it through some real struggles, but were able to restore their health, hope, and peace. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and as a certified coach, I'm here to guide you to be your best self-advocate, to help you restore your health, ignite your faith, and conquer those fears while you navigate your own healing journey so you can eventually exchange your dis-ease for durability. If you're looking for hope and encouragement to live a life you love, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. Well, I wanted to start this week's episode with a short clip of the amazing voice of my next guest, because I think if you heard just a few bars of the brilliant beauty and savvy strength of this jazzy voice, well, I think it would speak volumes. But with all of the copyright and barriers that exist these days with recorded music, I just wasn't able to do that. But trust me, she is worth your time. So check out the links here down in the show notes. She's classy, timeless, and her voice and spirit fill up a room with something warm and wonderful. And you know in an instant that you're hearing something real, authentic, and full of love. If you don't know her name, chances are you've heard her voice. And I'm talking about the one and only Patty Peterson. Patty is a world-class jazz R&B vocalist and a jazz radio personality. She is a mainstay in the jingle and voiceover industry and an inspiring presenter on the national speaking circuit. In addition to being an award-winning vocalist both live and in studio, Patty has hosted multiple radio talk shows, and she's even been an actress and a model, appeared in numerous commercial voiceovers and jingles, and has performed the national anthem at several major venues throughout the United States. You'll see one of the links here in the show notes. Patty has also been producer for shows like Memories, the music of Barbra Streisand, the Jazz Women All-Stars, and she's produced the Minnesota Jazz Legends for Jazz 88 for 10 years now, since its inception in 2014. She's also produced the Peterson Family Christmas Shows for now more than 25 years. Patty was born into what we all know as Minnesota's first family of music, the Peterson family. This family's gifting stems from those legendary parents, Willie and Jean Arlen Peterson. But those talents have then extended throughout the entire family, from Patty Peterson to her sister Linda Peterson, and brothers Billy Peterson, Ricky Peterson, and Paul Peterson, all of whom are recording artists in their own right and are either currently touring or somehow involved in the national and international music scene. The Peterson family members have either once played with or are currently touring with such well-known artists as Dizzy Gillespie, Bob Dylan, Steve Miller, Kenny Loggins, Michael Bolton, Carlos Santana, Neil Young, Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac, George Benson, Alida Adams, Anita Baker, Paula Abdul, Peter Frampton, and Prince. Paul Peterson was even featured in the award-winning film Purple Rain. And all of these well-known names I listed are only a few of the ways this family has impacted and continues to impact the music that we all hear on a daily basis. Patty began singing as a child, and today she's an award-winning vocalist and has performed to sold-out audiences all over the country, from such well-known jazz clubs as the Dakota Jazz Club and Crooner's Lounge here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, all the way to Vibrato, Catalina's Jazz Club, and the Jazz Bakery in Los Angeles, California. Patty has released 5 solo CDs which feature such well-known names as Sheila E., David Hazeltine, Stokey Williams, and Ira Sullivan, and members of her own family. In addition to her musical resume, Patty Peterson is also a featured speaker for the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health, the American Heart Association, St. Jude Medical, and the Minneapolis Heart Institute, among others. And if all of that wasn't enough, Patty is also host to her own weekly contemporary jazz show on KBEM 88.5 FM. Well, with a resume like that, anyone would be excited to have a conversation with this beautiful soul. But the reason I'm most excited to share today's conversation with you is because Patty is the real deal. She's authentic, and she's a big sister type friend to me. I love her to the very core, and I know you will too. So, with no further ado, let's dive into this conversation. I'd like you to meet my dear friend, Patty Peterson. Hello and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I am over the moon excited today to share with you the conversation and introduce you to my sweet, sweet friend who I have to keep reminding myself is an international rock star herself. But she is full of magic. She is full of miracles. She's full of music, and she is my friend, Patty Peterson. Welcome to the show, Patty.
Thank you so much. Who is that again? No. Lisa, I'm so happy to be with you on this incredible show. Congratulations to you on everything. And we have an interesting story how we got to know each other, but maybe we'll touch on that during our conversation today.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was actually thinking about that this morning. I did a little bit of research just to get all of the stats and things fresh in my mind. And I was asking myself, how did I get to know you? And the thing that pops into my memory is I was looking through a book, a music book. I was struggling a little bit with my music, my singing, myself, wanted to do a CD. And out of this book falls a little piece of paper that says, call me Patty Peterson. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I met this wonderful gal, and she had suggested that she had some ways that she could help if I was ever interested. And it was like quite a bit of time had come between that note being written and stuck in my book and that time that it fell out. So what do you recall on your side?
Well, something like that we had met, and I think I knew about some of my family members starting to produce artists. Yeah. And I was loving getting to produce some of the vocals. And you were so fixed on knowing you wanted to say more in this life with your music, with your voice, and you wanted to know how to do that. And I thought, I would love to impart any wisdom that I have to you, because, energetically, you can tell right away when someone is, their energy is sweet and truthful and really looking and searching for some ways and ways to get to the next thing that they're supposed to be doing in their life. So I felt that from you. And I thought that was one of those in the moment things. And yeah. So glad we could meet in that way.
Oh, yes. And it ended up turning out to be where you and your brother Paul, who's worked with, Prince and has all kinds of different artists out there, but where he produced my CD. And it was just an absolute, one of the most fun, memorable times of my life, for sure.
Oh, and for us too. You became a member of the family. It was great.
Well, it's been a wonderful joy to know all of you. And your family, speaking of families, is known here, at least in Minnesota, in the upper Midwest, and even around the world as Minnesota's first family of music. You have all the way from your mom and dad to your generation, to your kids, and now your grandkids. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that whole thing started, for those who don't know or aren't as familiar with it?
Well, it's interesting because if we go back to my parents' age, they grew up in a time when a lot of the entertainment was gathering around a piano, if you were lucky enough to have that, or a guitar, and play music as part of your entertainment in the 1920s. Also to listen to the radio. And music was amazing, and an amazing gatherer after a meal, or, maybe there were some dances going on over the weekend. Turns out that both of my parents had music in their families. And it was so fun to hear Mom tell the stories about, in particular, when she was 3, she could play piano with both hands. I don't really remember when she started singing, but she was one who could listen to a recording and play the recording the way it sounded, or she could play just like her next door neighbor's uncle, who was corny. And it had a very young age, she was playing, they would say, play whatever his name was. And she knew better. She couldn't play it in front of him, but she would say, she would play what she was hearing next door at the duplex. So anyway, her ear was amazing. She continued on. She was a 15-year-old piano player singer when she started working in town.
Mm.
So when you think about it, 1936 was about that time, the Depression era, and people getting laid off from their jobs. So she brought a check home to her father after working not only for and with her brother at 15 years old, but she had started working as a vocalist on WCCO radio as well. But she came home and sat on her dad's lap at 15 years old and handed him a check for $100. He had just lost his job and he cried. So
that was a lot of money back
meaning,
then.
it was definitely a lot of money. And it was just her natural gift that she always spoke to us about that led her forward. And, you know, Mom was such a brilliant musician. Come to find out after speaking to her, but reading her journals after she passed 11 years ago, that she met Willie Peterson a couple of different ways. And one was when she was at her senior prom. I believe she was 17 or 16, and she was there having fun, but he was in the band playing piano. And he wanted to go dance with somebody. And so they said, hey, Gene, go play this song with the band. We're talking big band era. We're talking the Great American Songbook. So she wasn't very happy about that. But anyway, she did. Then when she was 19, if you think back, it was probably 1940 or something like that. And there was always a band with a girl singer. So she could do both, either play piano or sing or both. So there was an occasion where this car, somebody was driving the car and they would all go in one car back then.
Yeah.
And then because the car was full, the girl singer had to sit on somebody's lap. So she was looking around at the people in the car and she saw my dad and said, well, he's cute. I'll sit on his lap. And that's when I say, and the rest is history. The rim shot has to happen. Yeah, right.
Do
Exactly.
a local rim shot.
So they played shows together. They would meet after their separate shows. And, you know, places would stay open until 4:00 in the morning. There was so much music in the Twin Cities, along Hennepin Avenue, in the downtown hotels, in St. Paul too, but she doesn't recall quite as much in her storytelling, in her journals about St. Paul music as much as she did Minneapolis. So Dad went off to war. They got married before he was shipped off to New Guinea. And when they came home, they began this family that all ended up in music. And there was 6 of us. There's 5 now. And we can talk about it as we go along. But that's how it all began. Music was in the house, commercials, arrangements for big bands, for commercials, for what was going to be played on the radio, because that was before canned music came in. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it was our second language, I say. Is that we had each other and we had music and we thought everybody grew up this way. So my sister said, we'd ask our friends, so what does your dad play? Or what does your mom? Instead of what do you do for a living? Mm-hmm. We thought everybody grew up with music. And I guess that's not the case. So
yeah. Well, it was the only entertainment, like you said, that there was, because we didn't have all these different iPhones and devices and internet to distract us. Music was a huge part of the whole society.
Yes, very much so. So, you know, when we heard that growing up, it was mostly Ella Fitzgerald, Oscar Peterson, the Four Freshmen, Tony Bennett, and things that were popular of the day, which were show tunes. And sometimes they had a jazzier element to them. Mm-hmm. But I remember Dad in the 1960s bringing home Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66. That was rather contemporary for our house. But then he brought home a gift for Ricky, who is a little younger than me. And the gift was The Monkees, an album, the first one of the Monkees. So I'm not quite sure why he chose that one, but Beatles were out at that point too. And so we were delving into other styles of music as younger kids, eventually playing them in bands and then going to rehearse downstairs. So it just, we kept going. And And to this day, we play music in that basement because, as the story will go, one of our siblings bought the family home. So there you go.
And if those walls could speak, right?
Oh my gosh. And what a cool thing, because now the walls have autographs of people who have rehearsed down there.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
How
yeah,
cool.
it's pretty
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's so many directions I'd love to take this, because when you're growing up like that, when did you first start composing, or when did some of that creating your own music enter into the mix?
I think I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, because my folks were into music and they could hear that we could sing and or play at very young ages. Our joke is, when we could stand, we'd sit next to the piano keys and mom would play a note and she'd say, can you sing this note? And if we could match the tone, well, we were in. But we were singing all the time as a family. I began my classical piano at 7 and classical flute at maybe 11. But we were all delving into the style of music that we needed to, whether it was practicing our lessons. And did it really hit me? No, because we had to play for neighbors. We had to play for family that would come over. We'd have to sing. Oh, do a song. I was like, I would definitely do the eye exercises and roll my eyes. And I didn't enjoy it until I got a little older. And I was 9 years old when my father said, well, I'd like you to record this record for me. And it was about my teddy bear. And it's really fun because I have a version of it. And to this day, I have the 45s, if anybody knows what that is. And it's so fun. So I'm 9 years old and I wouldn't learn the song because of, like, I have to do that again. And all he had to say was, well, I'll get your first cousin to do it. And I learned that song so fast. So anyway, that's how I got in it. And as time went on, as a ninth grader at the Academy of Holy Angels, I became a dancer in the chorus of their musical. And then in my sophomore year, I moved over to public school. My father had passed away right about then, when I was 14. So when I got into high school in the public school, of course, a much larger platform. And although I knew I loved to sing and I was playing keyboards in a band already, and doing some schools and whatnot, don't even remember how I got in it, except that my brother Ricky was 10 years old and he was the keyboard player, but I took the job from him. He doesn't let me forget that. But as a 16-year-old,
Yeah.
there was the ability to try out for a musical. And I went in with my mom. This is a great story. And this is the scenario that taught me that I loved singing and I loved an audience, because it was a very cold January day, going to the auditorium of Richfield High School. The art director was the musical director, and the show was going to be Guys and Dolls.
Okay.
So I walk in and I'm getting ready to perform my song. And mom walks in with her fur, drapes it over the auditorium chairs, goes into this arpeggio, and I start to sing, did he need a stronger hand from Mame? And as it turns out, like I found out later that this same teacher said, oh my gosh, what the heck is this now? I ended up at the lead. And when I got the applause for my singing and learning the lines and being on stage, I finally went, oh, I get it now.
I like this. This is
joined
where
my
I'm supposed to be.
Totally. And I joined my first band. It was a horn band called Open Road that summer. Tried out for the rest of the musicals and one even in college. And that really began my career as a stand-up vocalist. And I played a little flute and piano up until my later 20s, but mostly known for being the front vocalist, as we call it in the business, MC now. And, it's just so much fun. I love it. And there's so many levels and layers to becoming somebody in the music business. And eventually I joined the business part of it, and I was in charge of what it was I could go out and do, as I was a mom at a young age, and, things like that. So there's the natural unfoldment. I was resistant at first, because my parents were making me do it.
Sure.
And then I got bitten by the bug at 16.
Well, oh, that's a great story. I love hearing how people get
Yeah.
into that, especially since people are just, so many people know you and they know your family. But to hear how that started and to understand it's so much like the rest of us, we don't want to be told what to do. And when our parents say you got to take lessons, that's the last
Yeah.
thing you want to do until you get bit by the bug.
That's exactly right. And I'm sure that happened for you, Lisa, because you possess quite a gift of writing and playing and singing. Your vocals are so beautiful. So,
Oh,
yes, like minds.
yes, you're like-minded for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit too, because I know that because your house was so full of music always, and I know your mom, Jean, played. I mean, I remember seeing her play even still, like 12, 13 years ago, and she played all the way up till like her final couple years, didn't she?
She sure did. She was 91 and she did her retirement concert at Hopkins Center for the Arts.
Yes.
And we chose to do that in between Christmas and New Year's and join her as a family. We always do a 3 or 4 generational family concert. So that was how old she was, and she died about 4 months later.
Yeah.
But she was a
Still played
strong,
flawless. She's just
Yeah,
played flawless up
right.
until her last performance. It's just amazing.
Yes, and she would knock people's socks off. Well, she and Dad used to love to play keyboards together, and I'll back up and say he was 48 when he passed away from cancer.
Mm.
So Mom was there raising, well, 5 of us, but 2 of the older ones were a little bit older and shortly out of the house. But they would play. They'd have 2 organs in the basement, this lower level rehearsal space, and they would play a fun song called Tico Tico, and they would play together on the radio. They would still perform at
Oh,
jobs. So
wow.
Mom was quite the influence on us, and we were a close family, but we sure bonded even more after Dad died. And as we grew older and recognized her brilliance, playing
Right.
together as a family is a happy place for all of us, I would say. There
Mhm.
is that communication, that language that I talked about that still occurs today. We can't wait to be together again so
Yeah.
we can, first of all, gather and have fun and giggle and catch up. But every well, we recorded too, but I mean, every concert that we do, we put our heart and soul into it because we love to communicate with each other and give that as a gift to our audiences.
Yeah. Well, for anyone who's listening, who's ever been or listened to one of those, it's evident. When you go, it is just like you had said earlier, it's just, you can just tell authenticity. You can just feel it through the energy that's coming through that music that's going on. So, yeah, it's really easy to tell. I'm curious because these days, and we chatted about this just briefly before we started recording, but these days there seems like there's so much competition inside of a family, especially since I know you have brothers and your sister too, who have really some amazing established careers with some really big names that anybody listening would know. But there never seems to be that inborn competition between you guys as a family unit. Do you know why that is? What's kept you guys supporting each other versus competing?
I think the fact that a lot of my siblings are multi-instrumentalists helps with supporting each other in one's own identity.
Okay.
And I think the 2 gals, we are both singers. I don't play piano anymore, but my sister Linda does. So we have those identities. And when we work together, I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes one person can think that they do something better than the other.
Mhm.
But we've reached a point where we embrace that and cheer it on.
Okay.
And we'll say, well, this is right up your alley, do this. And, maybe one considers themselves better at a certain instrument. And so the other one will pick up the other instrument. And it becomes, there could be like a little, step back for a second because we're human after all.
Mhm, mhm.
But we get to that place where how we choose to present the music is definitely one that's balanced. We've processed it, even though maybe in our heart of hearts, we think that we could have done the same kind of job. But it's about making the best show possible in the moment for people and to get as many of our family members on stage because there's a lot of bodies that end up on stage.
Yeah, there
And
sure
what I
are.
mean by that is personnel.
Yeah, you have a lot of people in your family who have gifts to
Yes,
share.
exactly. Co-creating. And so anyway, I'm glad that doesn't show up But
Me too.
every once in a while, there is discussion about it. And so we're normal. We are definitely normal,
Mhm.
but for the most part, it's for the greater good. And we
Yeah,
stay there.
exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
And your whole family is so personable and approachable. It's just it makes everybody that you guys have a way of just making everybody feel at home. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Wonderful.
So
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
So your career has taken on so many different avenues. It's just fantastic of the different things you've done from radio to even modeling and some acting and some of those kinds of things. But now you're doing some things with jazz radio. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, radio was not something that I thought I would ever get into, but back in about 1996, I was on several times promoting musical events. And of course, my sister is such a big cheerleader. And she said to me, you should think about this. You could do this as a career or a side career or whatever. So for WCCO, I threw my hat in the ring. And about a year later, they said, yeah, we could use somebody to sub once in a while. One thing led to another. Ended up with my own show for 6 years. Talk about a training ground to have thoughts flow so there's no dead air.
Yes.
And to learn about the values of trying to not do ums and ahs and, but I had 6 years there. And the reason why I didn't stay was because it was at a time when things became a lot more newsy, in that I was in the broadcaster's chair the morning of September 11th. And my radio partner was out of town, but the news team was there. And, I could never quite get why God put me, an artist and a mother, in that chair, in that moment. What was my purpose for everyone? If it was to bring a sense of peace and information and wanting to help, then okay, that's exactly how it made me feel. And I appreciated having that role. It turned out that one of the Gulf Wars had started then too, and they chose to go with a news-oriented person for that shift, just by herself. And it was okay, though, because it was my college. I really learned so much about myself in that job. And I kept what I learned with me. And as it turns out, I ended up leaving that and going to jazz radio, full circle, back to the kind of music that I was raised on, and wanted to go in and sub for them too. And as it turns out, that's what I am. I'm a rotating sub, and I have one regular show on Sundays, which is contemporary jazz, for a couple of hours. But people turn on and they might hear me in the morning, they might hear me in the afternoon, they might hear me on Sunday morning. So with that, I've been with them about 16 years now. I was out with my mom, and she was in her older years. And so these stories will connect, I promise. And it is 2012, maybe 2011. And I'm at a place called the Old Log Theater, which had a lot of great theater productions on dark nights, Mondays, Tuesdays. They would have music. And I was driving mom because, taking her to this concert she was going to be in. And she and the Jazz All-Stars were all in their 90s. And it was Cliff Brunzell from the Golden Strings. It was saxophonist. He played violin. Saxophonist Percy Hughes. Saxophonist Irv Williams. And then some younger guys who were rounding out the quartet, piano, bass, drums. And I thought to myself, why on earth is nobody documenting this? What is this? We've got to document this. People are playing at their top level, like you said, at this age. So I worked with a jazz station to get a state grant. And it took until, unfortunately, 2013 for me to get that approval. Unfortunately, my mother had just passed away, and Cliff Brunzell of the Golden Strings had just passed away. But we still were able to have them. I got my grant. This show now has been happening for 10 years.
Wow.
We honor the current Minnesota jazz legends, the elders, the wise ones. But now I'm at this place that, we're getting into the upper 70s, and they are the elders, but it reads better, Minnesota Jazz Legends. And if people did a Google search with even my name and Minnesota Jazz Legends or Jazz 88, they would see that 10 years we've been preserving the history of jazz in the state of Minnesota. And lucky enough for me, they gave me the reins. So it's going to be airing on June 23rd, but they can go to jazz88.fm and look for Minnesota Jazz Legends and hear past shows. And it is about a 15-minute segment on each legend, and there's about 4 per hour.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I'm excited for this new one to come out. And
Yeah.
just trying to be real mindful about people who have gone before us, trying to be mindful of the art form and who really excelled. And I'm loving it. It's a lot of work, but I'm loving it.
Well, thank you. Thank you on behalf of any and all musicians, future and past, that are out there, because it's those legends that we learn from. We take what
Yes.
they have learned and what they have created on their own from their own talents. We tweak them, we build them, we add to them, put our own talents into them. I mean, that's how music creates and gets grown over the years.
Lisa, I think one of the greatest gifts I've had is not only preserving, these musicians in the light that you just put it in, but some of them truly feel they have been forgotten about.
Mm.
And to see them light up and say, you gave my life meaning once again, that
Oh.
my story matters and you want to know my story.
Mm.
And I think that's really been the gift in all of this. And I know that some people have already departed. Some are having some health challenges. But to know that their art really meant something and that we want to tell their story,
Mhm.
that it touches their heart, touches mine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's really easy these days. You pull up songs on Spotify or whatever it might be, whatever streaming service you're using, but we rarely stop to think about the person and the soul that's behind the line that's being played. And I love that you're preserving that awareness so we can see who those people are and try to never forget them.
Yes, very true. I have another series that I'm doing too, which is a little bit different than that, but it struck me when I was at a house party and the main talent was already done. And the hosts of the party are in the industry. Actually, they own quite a successful club. And I said, I'll go sing a couple songs. And she was wanting someone to go up, and piano player I'd never worked with got up, and I know him. He's wonderful. But we've never worked together, and we did 5 tunes in the moment.
Isn't that
And
fun?
so I have a new series that I'm doing at a club called Crooners, and I call it In the Moment, the Living Room Sessions.
Nice.
Because that's when it's really fun, when the creativity is right there, that I haven't worked with a piano player before or very little. And then I'm recording all of them and they tell their story. And then I feature them on either an original or whatever. So I guess I've become a storyteller, Lisa, in addition to being a radio personality, an MC, and a vocalist.
Yeah.
So
Well,
really,
music has always been, like you said in the very beginning, a language. And so that's the language of your story. And I love that. I love that.
Too.
Yeah.
Good way to put it.
I know that we've been talking for a bit here, but do you have a few more minutes? I'd love to go down one other little avenue if you're okay with time.
Absolutely.
I'd really love our listeners to hear the incredible, miraculous story about the day the music almost stopped. And I know this is a
Okay.
big part of your life. I know this is a big part of the speaking that you do and a big part of the spokesperson side of your world now as well. So not very many people know about our aortas. Not very many people know what a aortic dissection is. But I would love for people to hear your story about that one night when you were in the car driving home.
Yeah, the way you presented it, I immediately got choked up because I live with the knowledge and I live like it never happened to me. I'm one of the lucky ones. A lot of people are, if they're still with us, handicapped physically or mentally.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was one of the ones who, I knew I had an issue driving my car home. The year was 2007. It was February. I had a really busy day and did Pilates, volunteered at my middle schools, like in the morning for the teachers. And took a class. I did a recording session and a rehearsal, and when I had a bite to eat and go back to another recording session. And with that, I was encouraged to come out. My brother was in town because there was a band in town that he had performed with, and they were going to go hang out. And I said, no, no, no. I have to get up really early in the morning. And I knew that I was a candidate for a new heart valve. And I had had some irregular heartbeats, and I'm late 40s at this point. But now I have managed it. I thought I could stave it off to the future. And when I was driving home, I felt what was like a dagger in my chest. I was talking to one of my kids, and luckily for me in Minneapolis at 10:30 at night, there's hardly anybody on the freeways. So I pulled off, called 911, ambulance came. I called my husband, a state trooper was there, and the 911 operator was on the phone with me till somebody got there because I was afraid. I didn't know what was happening to me. And I want to put this out there because this is often a mistake people can make. But the trooper was with me and I was still in my car. And my husband said, "Are you sure it isn't something you ate?" I said, "No, the ambulance is pulling up. Just meet me down at the hospital." I could tell some sensation was happening in my body and I wasn't sure. So I knew I needed help. Let's put it that way. I knew I needed help.
And that was
With my
the thing that
purse.
I want to highlight about that. It wasn't anything scientific. It was really a gut feel. Like you just knew your body enough to know that something is definitely not right. And no, it's not bad pizza. I really need somebody to look at this.
Very true. And the other thing is that this was too sharp and and harsh for it to be nothing,
Got it.
And I thought maybe I was having a heart attack. There was an email going around. Well, maybe if you cough, it'll go back into rhythm. I did it all. And I thought, no, let's get some help here. What I did know though, is when the ambulance came, I asked them, I was right in the middle of two hospitals, but I knew where my records were. So I asked to go to Abbott Northwestern Hospital. And when I was in the emergency room, my husband and son got there right away. And the emergency room physician, who is still a good friend of mine, was treating me for a heart attack. And as I had my chest x-ray, everything was correct in the way that he was handling things. And then he looked at my chest x-ray and he wasn't really looking at it. His intuition told him, and this doesn't happen very often, "You son of a gun, if you don't check her for this other thing, you could lose her." And he was right.
Wow.
So 17 years ago, he went on his gut and sent me into a CT scan, which confirmed his suspicions. And his suspicion was aortic dissection. So here's where the science lesson comes in. Out of your heart is this main artery that comes up and looks like an upside down umbrella handle. And this feeds your brain, your arms, your organs. And when you have an aortic dissection, the walls of the aorta are splitting and they're cutting off the blood supply to your brain, your organs. And I was dying. It was about 45 minutes into it. And so the minute he knew that, he pressed a button, a level 1 response. And my husband said it was like a SWAT team outside of your emergency room. I would say that this was about 11:30, and by 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, I was in surgery already. That's how
Wow.
fast they moved. And everyone in my family, except for my oldest and his wife, were there. My sister-in-law, who's an ICU nurse, was able to leave her shift at another hospital and come down. My brothers, whoever was in town, but 3 of my 4 sons. And I had emergency open heart surgery while they wondered if they'd ever see me again, because that's what the doctor said to my husband. Better call everybody you know, because this does not look good. So I made it through, and they came out and told my family, well, they're warming up her blood, meaning it was going back into my body. This is a miraculous thing that people do.
It's
This is so
amazing.
science and God, as far as I'm concerned. But my spirit came back. I was here, and I woke up, and they induced a coma for about 3 more days. And then as I started to walk the halls, I was talking to that strong Pilates girl inside of me going, you can do this. You were doing Pilates 4 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at a week, I said, I want to go home. And they let me because I
Wow.
did what they needed me to do. But then you never know if you're going to sing a note again.
Mm-mm.
It took 2 or 3 breaths to finish one sentence. I just told everybody something that I used as a prayer, as a message to my body to follow along suit because I couldn't tell them what was going on or how I was doing. I just said, I'm better every day.
Mm.
I'm better every day. And that was a path that I took that was going to be better every day. And they put in a mechanical heart valve. It's really an artificial heart valve, along with a graft to the damaged aorta. I live with aortic dissection. They did not repair my whole aorta. I keep my blood pressure at normal rate. And they watch it every year. They take such good care of me. And this is Minneapolis Heart Institute. And the doctors there have been just fabulous for me. So I'm going to try to speed through the story now because I eventually got back to a place where my sister said, once again, we need to thank the doctors. We need to thank everybody who helped keep you here. So we did a concert. My band members, my dear friend Lori Dawkin, all my family, and we held a concert at the Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul. And we invited all the medical staff that helped work on me to keep me here and who were continuing, including my cardiac rehab. And then we sold tickets, and what we earned, we gave right back to Minneapolis Heart Institute. So I have become a spokesperson for them. And close to a year later, I'd been looking for a woman who was married to a very famous, and she's very famous, actor who died from what I had. And I learned about this when I was in the hospital, and Stuart, my husband, came into the hospital room and said, you know, you had what John Ritter had. It's called aortic dissection. And I went, what the heck is that? I mean, I didn't even know.
Right.
5 days into it, I thought, what are you talking about? Anyway, I looked for her for 6 months so that I could tell her hospitals were saving lives. And I couldn't find her. And so this is about from month 6 to about month 12. And I'm in February, it's freezing. I'm painting something in my home. All of a sudden, I get this blocked phone call, and I listen to it a day later. And hi, this is Amy Yazbek. I'm from California. I'm the widow of John Ritter. And I read an article on you, and I want to get to know you. So
she reached out to you independently from the things you. Oh,
yes, she did. And I held the phone up and I went like this, pointing to the heavens, going, you are good. How did you do? How did you do that? So she and I talked. She says, I love you already. I said, I love you already. And the two of us went and spoke at aortic symposiums about the right way to be diagnosed and the wrong way.
Nice.
So that's been going on now for her well, he's been gone 20 years at least.
Yes.
And now she's got the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health. There is a division of cardiology that is called IRAD that deals with aortas. And I'm going to go back to really giving the credit to how I take care of myself, but how the doctors, the cardiologists, the medical staff, I say they watch me like a hawk, and I live my life. And do you know the blessings I've had being on this side? The blessings are, I got to be with my mother. I got to play music. I get to play music with my family. I get to see my children graduate from college, from high school, get married. I have 7 grandchildren, Lisa. It's the most amazing thing. And yes, my granddaughter is a budding artist, a great singer. She's 15, playing keyboards and many other instruments. So it's happening. I mean, I've been witness to all these fabulous things. My time here was not done.
No.
And I'm here to tell you that about a year after I came back to singing, I was doing a church service and somebody came into the church and said, you know, I really like the songs you picked today. And they were positive and motivating, which is who I am, you know, on the planet. And I want to pick those songs and touch people's hearts. And this woman's name was Joy. And she goes, I know some of your family. And I went, really? And she rattled off who she knew in my family and asked me how my mom was, who was vibrant that many years ago and still playing. And she said to me, Patty, I love these songs. And I said, well, everybody has music that follows them in good times and bad. I just have these great platforms to sing them on. And she looked at me and said, no, Patty, you really live your gift. And I was like, zing, like that was the message. And I said, her name is Joy. And I've looked for her. I believe she was an angel who gave me a reason to go out and remind people that we're all born with gifts and that it's up to us to remember what they are and to live them. So I say to you, Lisa, keep living your gift.
Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful story, my friend. You may not remember it, but I remember sitting on your bedside in the ICU. And I remember praying with you, praying over you. I remember hundreds and hundreds of people praying over you. So the skills of the hands that treated you and the prayers of those who were lifting you up before God. And for all of those reasons, you are here to continue influencing and impacting lives left and right through your music, your heart, and the soul you have to encourage the people around you, which is just beautiful. So, well, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I was just going to say, if that's my reasons for being here still, I accept. It's what fuels me. People say, Patty, you're so busy. And I say, I love everything I do.
Yeah. Well, it shows. You just exudes from everything you say and the way you say it. So good. I know our time is wrapping up here kind of soon, but I do want to get back to, you got the big show coming up on, remind me, June 23rd?
June 23rd at 4:00, and it will be the airing of the 10th anniversary of Minnesota Jazz Legends on Jazz 88. And you can hear it, on the FM station 88.5 FM in the Twin Cities, or you can hear it and stream it now, TuneIn app or jazz88.fm, which we've got a way to stream it. So we've got that, and I am singing all the time. I have a website, pattypeterson.com, and it'll tell you whether I have a radio show or a concert coming up. And also if I'm performing with my family, it'll be on there too. So I'm blessed, Lisa. Yeah. I just love living my gift and recognizing just how much I love being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and just being with us today. And I'll put all of those links in our show notes so people can find you and can get to those jazz links and hopefully sign up and get those tickets for the Christmas concert where your whole family's there to play and enjoy and spread the news of great joy.
We have, and we're going to be at the Dakota. So we'll let you know. And I'm not sure if it's on my website, but I think I'll make sure it's on there so people can have it. The tickets go on sale in the fall.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much, Lisa. You're an angel. I can see the glow from here.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, Patty. I just love you so much. Hugs, hugs, hugs.
Cyber hugs.
Yeah, cyber hugs. I love you too. Bye, Patty.
Bye, honey.
Well, for those of you who are faithful listeners, you know that I always like to pull out some takeaways at the end. And I think this entire conversation was one big takeaway. But I do have seven takeaways for you today. Number one, what fills your home will fill your children's hearts. Patty's home was always filled with music, and they were encouraged to sing and use their talents. They were encouraged to grow and refine their gifts. And it was expected. As Americans, we are quick to applaud intellect and high math and English scores. But how much do we really encourage and enforce the brilliant skills of music making, singing, playing, and composing? Music is a language on its own, and it will serve your kids really well as a tool to help with emotional development, stress management, and equally important, putting beauty back out there into the world for others to enjoy and appreciate. So talk with your school boards, encourage your kids to embrace music as part of their development journey. We need music in our lives. Number two, humans naturally push back. I'm not sure why, but I know that human beings just love free will. I think God knew that too, and that's why he gave us free will. But he knows too that we don't do so well when we're told to obey. We really do well when we're given the choice. And when we can choose to do something, especially if a little healthy competition is involved. Even Patty Peterson and her siblings all had their moments of not really wanting to practice or not wanting to do that recording they were asked to do or whatever the thing was that the parents were asking them to work on at the moment. It does take a little time, some age and maturity to truly appreciate the opportunities we have before us. So parents, keep on encouraging your kids to practice, to perform, and to use those talents that they've been given. Eventually, they will realize what a gift it is. And they might just really get bit by the bug like Patty did and end up providing a lifetime of beautiful music to enjoy. Number 3, humility is a superpower. Everyone has a gift. We all have talents. And when you're confident in your gifts, then you can move to that next level and start cheering on your peers and your family members so you can create the best possible outcome. In Patty's family, it's about making the best show possible in the moment for people and to open up as many opportunities as they can for family members so they also can use their gifts. So, what is the show in your family? Is it music? Is it a business opportunity, or is it just cheering each other on to your own individual endeavors? Humility and genuinely wanting the best outcome will usually guide you to the right approach. Number 4, a lasting legacy. Remember, Patty had said that one of her greatest gifts was helping to preserve the history of Minnesota jazz greats who have come from this part of the world. But also from a very personal perspective, she appreciates the opportunity to let these jazz greats know that they are remembered, to honor their stories and show them that the audience truly does still care about and appreciate the talents and contributions that these amazing musicians have made over the years. The program that Patty created to preserve these legends and the legacy that they've created is on jazz88.fm. Tomorrow, June 23rd, will be the 10th year of this amazing program. You can either listen to it live tomorrow or stream it online at jazz88.fm. Number 5, a second chance to put your health first. By God's grace, Patty was one of the lucky ones. And by God blessing her, those who love her and all that she contributes to this world is also lucky and blessed. In the case of an aortic dissection, every moment matters. If Patty hadn't trusted her gut, if she hadn't known that something was seriously wrong, if she had made anyone else second guess her own sense that something was seriously not right, she might not be here. Also, if her doctor hadn't trusted his gut to do one more test, one more check, and take one more look, Patty might not be with us. So I think there are times when God gifts us with a sixth sense about a situation, our health, or the circumstances that we're in, especially when we're caring for someone else. It's worth trusting those instincts to see where that path leads. It might lead to nothing, or your instinct might just save a life. Number 6, mindset matters. I'm better every day, Patty said, over and over again. I'm better every day. Her mindset really participated in her healing after that aortic dissection. She spoke to that internal warrior she knew that lived inside of her, that Pilates strong girl who wasn't going to give up, and she took the positive mental path that she needed, telling everybody, including herself, every time she said it, she's getting better every day. And finally, number 7, learn to live your gift. You, my friend, you have a gift. We all have one. Take some time to stop. Let your mind and the prompting of the Holy Spirit show you what your gift is. And then, just like Patty said, zing! She knew she was meant to live her gift. And that was the encouragement she needed to keep going and to get out there to remind other people that we're all born with gifts and that it's up to us to remember what those are, to share them, and to live your gift. Thank you so much for listening and being with us today. If you're enjoying the podcast, please share it right now with 2 of your friends. And if you haven't, I would so appreciate it if you'd write a quick review to help other people find these kinds of great episodes as well. Also, if you have any tips or ideas that you'd like us to cover on this podcast, please send an email to my production team. That email address is podcast@lisaroers.com. Thank you for listening and watching today. God bless you, and we'll see you right back here next week at the Sunshine Cafe.